First of all, I think I should do some Thanksgiving. And because, this book has been in the making for the last 27 years. And many people have helped me to bring it out. First of all, for this program, I thank my friend Mr. Toby Simon, Ms. Samrata Shetty, then my friends from UK and USA, Professor Tim Willsey, Dr. Matthew Burrows. Then I thank my publisher, Ms. Sonavi Desai of Indus Source Books, Mumbai. Then Ms. Lakshmi Menon, who is an author and a creative artist who had given 6 sketches, very creative sketches on different personalities from time to time, and that is there included in the book. Then I also thank Sri Kumar Ramanathan, the retired, who just recently retired as a special secretary in Cabinet Secretariat, for going through my manuscript and giving good suggestions. And last, I would like to thank Professor Tricia Bacon of American University, whom I had given the first printed copy of the book in Mumbai. Well, as I said, this has been in the making for the last 27 years. And the trigger for writing this came sometime in 93, 94, when I was leading the interagency groups to have our annual dialogue with the American interagency group on terrorism. At that time, in one of the social gatherings, I met a young, promising university graduate who was studying intelligence. So he asked me the question, which is the best book on the history of intelligence? I could lay my hand on nothing, because at that time, The Craft of Intelligence, written by the famous American intelligence chief, was the textbook for all the primary intelligence schools. Then much later, Professor Christopher Andrew wrote a mammoth book, The Secret World, incorporating all his lectures at Stimson Center. This book was published in 2018. Well, coming to my humble contribution, I would say that I read about during this period, from 1995, mostly after my retirement, I started writing. I read about 42 books, and there are about 433 references in this book, which is not more than 300 pages. What I have dealt with, which you would say is unlike Christopher Andrew, which views the doyen of intelligence writers all over the world, is that I have split the intelligence business, or rather the art of intelligence, into different groups. One is, what is the difference between secret intelligence and open source intelligence? Now, very often, it is my experience, I have been a member of the inquiry committee, 2-man inquiry committee, to go into the 26/11 terrorist attack. The OSI is not given importance for open source intelligence. People care only for secret intelligence, which is not very good, because many a time we get a lot of hints from OSI. Then I have split up the intelligence business into covert action. Why was the need for covert action for a long time by various intelligence agencies? And then the other aspects of intelligence is intelligence liaison, official or non-official. Now, official people can understand. But we have got classic cases of two people. One is James Donovan, who was the bridge between America and Cuba. And this has been pictured in the film Bridge of Spies, starring Tom Hanks. Then the other thing I would like to quote is the famous TV journalist called Walter Cronkite. And Walter Cronkite was the person who set off the first Camp David Camp David talks, which ended in peace between Menachem Begin and Anwar Sadat. So the other aspect of intelligence working, which I had mentioned in this book, is hegemonist intelligence. I have said that the Russian, they exercise control over not only Stasi, but also tried to do it on Chinese intelligence for a long time. And to some extent, I'm sorry to say that this has been recorded, this is there on paper also. In the initial years, even in India, the Intelligence Bureau was, you can call it the MI5, having a bit of a control over the Intelligence Bureau. This is there on record. Christopher Andrews has written about it. And but then we got over all that. And then the other problems are non-official covers. What are the non-official covers? I have dealt with that. Then the other most important thing is intelligence failure. I have examined various cases which are known as intelligence failure. And that is the sum and substance of this book. It's a pure history. There are no discussions on current operations, and there is no politics involved in it. Now, I want to briefly go over the milestone I covered while writing this book. Now, in 1999, the prestigious weekly, Economic Political Weekly in Mumbai, asked me to review Senator Patrick Moynihan's book, Secrecy, the American Experience. That was released in 1998, and 1999, I was asked to review it. For that, I had to do a lot of reading. For example, he starts with, Moynihan starts, as you know, Moynihan was famous or notorious among the CIA because he brought two bills in 1991 and 1995 to wind up CIA. Because and much later he started talking about it in the US Senate. In 1998, when CIA missed Indian nuclear explosion, the government, United States, appointed Admiral Jeremiah Inquiry Committee. And that was the time when Moynihan was attacking the CIA, saying that there is no need for an organization like this which misses certain very important developments. Now, what Moynihan has said, the sum and substance was, secrecy has significant consequences for the national interest when, as a result, policymakers are not fully informed, government is not held accountable for its action, and the public cannot engage in informed debate. Now, a concrete example he has quoted was the Bay of Pigs, which was the most expensive operation ever in the history, US dollars 46 million they spent on that. It would not have happened had there been an open discussion, because there was a 1960 Princeton paper that they have mentioned that whatever you may do, the Cubans are not going to shift their allegiance from Castro. Even the CIA Inspector General had said the same thing. And in 1997, George Kennan, one of the leading, he would say, a legendary US diplomat, had said openly, in my conviction, it is my conviction based on 70 years of experience, first as a government official and then in the past 45 years as a historian, that the need by our government for secret intelligence has been vastly overstated. So you get an avalanche of, and then in my book also I quoted Dean Acheson, who was the US Secretary of State, saying that it was absolutely a wrong thing to have done, created a department like CIA, which has now grown bigger than the State Department. So you have a number of such opinions which give from very, very experienced people saying that intelligence is not required. But what is happening? My research, I felt that the first, Alan Dulles had said in his book that the first covert operation in mankind history was 13th century BCE, which is written in the book of Numbers, the fourth book of the Hebrew Bible. The Lord spoke to Moses, send men to spy out the land of Canaan. Now, what is Canaan now? Canaan is the present Israel, West Bank, Gaza, Jordan, and southern Syria and Lebanon. So this is the first recorded history of spying, and it is a covert operation. And then you have, we had a intelligence chief called Noshir Framji Santu. On his table, I used to see a small statuette, and that was the grapes of Canaan, which has been immortalized by a famous French painter called James Tissot, the grapes of Canaan. And and then when I asked him, sir, what is this? I didn't know anything about it. Some people are carrying the grapes. He said, look, you don't know. This is the first recorded story of covert operation in history. And then you have this Chinese Sun Tzu, which is, of course, everybody now talks about Sun Tzu. He was actually writing for the king of Wu State, Ho Lu of Wu State, and he had written what is called Art of War. And you will find a number of measures that he has suggested, but actually it's actually a war manual. It's not really speaking an intelligence manual. There are certain portions I have mentioned that in my book that this can be adapted for intelligence work. And as I mentioned, Alan Dulles mentioned in his book. But then Alan Dulles didn't mention about Arthashastra. Arthashastra was written by Chanakya in 4th to 3rd century BCE, and he has got 15 books in the art of war. And there you will find the entire modern spy craft, you may call, it's all written there. The sting operations and so many other things, covert operations, the question of throwing confusion among the enemies, how do you capture the country, and how do you sabotage their existing institutions and set up a new thing. It's all there in the 15 books. Then the most important thing which nobody has mentioned, which I have mentioned, let me very proudly say, is about Thiruvalluvar, Thirukural. There is a history behind it. When Mr. Rajagopalachari took over as the Home Minister in 1950 after the death of Sardar Patel, Mr. Malik, who is the father of Indian intelligence, called on him. So the first question Rajaji asked, have you read Thirukural? He said, no sir, I had not heard about it. He said, go and read. You will find the same thing, whatever you are doing now. In there are 133 chapters, 1330 Kurals of Thirukural. So you will find that mankind has been using this intelligence, although Moynihan and others, George Kennan and others have been saying. So it is in our blood. It is in our governance system. So what is it that makes us feel that we should have strong intelligence? And some people will say that intelligence is bad. They do all sort of wrong things. Now, and then another thing is the They say that these are all legends. There is nothing in recorded history. But I could find Chanakya's a recorded history. It's written by I mean, this is unfortunately in certain interior rural universities is written. And since it is not well publicized, people do not know anything about it. I found a scholar from Marathwada in Maharashtra, Dr. Pradnya Konarde, and people would not have even heard about this university, Baba Saheb Ambedkar University of Marathwada. She has written a paper about Shivaji's intelligence chief, and his name is Bahiraji Naik. If you see what Chanakya has written, that you assume the garb of a mendicant or a hawker. Same thing was Tirukkural also is there. How do you do it? You go, you assume this, etc. This man used to do it. And she has recorded that when Shivaji raided the financial capital of Mughals, Aurangzeb, Surat, that Bairaji did it, and he looted the treasury, and the whole Mughal empire literally had to be, they came into serious difficulties because of this. He has recorded. So then I looked back, I did a bit of a search and tried to find out, is there anything recorded? Yes, there was. There is a history of, the Britishers had written excellent gazetteer of states, districts. The Logan's Manual, written by a Scottish collector, Malabar, is one of the best history of the old Kerala. Similarly, a man called James Campbell, in 1896, he had written the history of Gujarat. In volume 1, he has written a very long, and I quoted this in my book also. Exactly what Konarde has said, he has said in 1896. So we cannot say that what Chanakya has written is legend, what Thiruvalluvar has written is legend. It is there recorded in the history. So I came to the conclusion that yes, intelligence is required. And what have I mentioned? I mentioned very briefly that the oldest, I started like this, which is the oldest intelligence agency which is still running? Many people say that there was a report saying that the British service is the oldest, which is not correct. Our oldest intelligence agency is the Intelligence Bureau of India. It was started in 1887. I given even the then Secretary of State's order to have an intelligence agency in India. But they wanted to camouflage so that, we don't we don't trigger the unhappiness in India, which is a colony, etc. So they tried to cover it up within the police. And the other most important thing which I mentioned is about, as I mentioned earlier, the neglect of open source intelligence. You will find that in Kargil also the same thing happened. 26/11 Mumbai attack also had happened, etc., etc. And then I found the Elizabethan, the spy chief Walsingham. It is there is a famous Babington plot. This is took place in 1586, and so there again the details of this Babington plot and how it brought down the Mary Queen of Scots are written in this book. Now, interestingly, covert action is supposed to be secret, and you are not supposed to discuss it openly. But US is the only country which has a legal definition of covert action. It is there if you read a paper prepared by Congressional Research Service as late as July 2, 2019. They have reproduced US Title 50 US Code as an activity or activities to influence foreign policy with US role will not be apparent. This is what is called deniability. And it's there. It is there in US statute book. So this is something you will find when you examine intelligence. The US everywhere will bring in a law. It cuts both ways. There is higher accountability, but at the same time it protects the people also, that they are acting under law. Unfortunately, in India, we have no law. We have no law either for the Intelligence Bureau or for law. So with the effect that these people who are sticking their neck out for the country, there is no protection for them. That is why I have been writing that we should have a law. I said even when our National Security Council was set up in 1998, I think, I wrote an article in Times of India saying that National Security Council should be governed by law and not by an executive fiat. Unfortunately, that has not been agreed upon even now. Then I have written, I have analyzed about 6 cases of intelligence failures. One is Pearl Harbor, 1941. Second is the first phase of Yom Kippur War in 1973. Then there is another very mysterious case of Beirut bombing of the American barracks and the French barracks, and in 1983. And there was no prior intelligence according to them. And then they said that this is an intelligence period, but there was intelligence. I mentioned here. Surprisingly, this came not to save the almost about 300, 400 American Marines who killed. There was an intelligence collected by National Security Agency, which unfortunately was not used by it was not shared with the Marines, and they lost. So, and then it came out when the families of these 300 Marines who died, they sued in, I think suddenly the NSA intelligence alert came up, and the court gave very heavy compensation because it was an Iranian operation through the Beirut bombing. And at that time, President Carter had frozen Iranian assets, and all these family members got it. Now the question is, if you had intelligence, why did you prevent the incidents? So, but then in the intelligence history, Beirut is also an intelligence failure. Then Kargil again I have quoted that it could have been, swifter action could have been taken had the National Security Council at that time adjudicated the intelligence that was available. That was not done. Then another thing is Mombasa Hotel, Paradise Hotel attack, in which some people died. That is a hotel where the Israelis go there for their vacation. There was a bomb attack and a number of people died. And so there, surprisingly, Australian Foreign Office alerted their nationals, don't go to Mombasa because there will be an attack. And Israelis did not know about it. So that is something very, very interesting case that again I mentioned this. And the last case of intelligence failure, which again was the fall of Ashraf Ghani, who ran away. Now there are any number of Wall Street Journal had published an article saying that the Taliban had infiltrated for a long time into various aspects, various sectors in Afghanistan, and they suddenly came up. So the question is, if you take an overall view, intelligence is necessary. That is what has been taught to us by mankind. But if it is to be properly adjudicated and implemented. So the question which I have concluded my book by quoting a statement by the then British Foreign Secretary William Hague on 16 November 2011. As you know, perhaps you know that in England, the Foreign Intelligence Agency and the GCHQ, that is the technical arm, is under the Foreign Secretary. And he gave an unprecedented press conference where the people were call, and whether the chief of MI6 and GCHQ were present, and he said this, that the intelligence is doing an extremely good job for us. They fill up the blanks of our understanding of other countries. The better our information is, the more we are equipped as a government to make right decisions. Then another thing which I have quoted is, Nehru did not believe that the Intelligence Bureau was required right from the beginning. But the first Intelligence Bureau conference, Mr. Malik has quoted in his book, he said that he wondered why India did not carry, when he was quoting about how the British, defeated even Marathas, who had a better sense of history and better sense of intelligence, etc. So he wondered why the India did not carry forward the Chanakya's Arthashastra, which had set up a number of good points. So even Nehru he felt the need for an efficient intelligence agency for various reasons. So I conclude my preliminary remarks by just saying, intelligence has saved lives, but have also destroyed lives. What is its use depends upon which side of the fence we are.